Welcome back to Simply Scratch Kitchen. Today we are canning lots and lots of bone
Just like you are.
broth. I had some turkey bones left over from Thanksgiving and I decided to get them going this weekend because we've got a big snowstorm coming in Texas, which is really unusual, and I just wanted to have a lot of cans of bone broth on my pantry shelf. So I'm going to walk you through how we get that done. So a couple days before you decide to can your broth, you want to get your bone broth cooking. So I had these bones stored in the freezer, which is a great way to do it. And then I just added a ton of water in the bones to this roasting pan. I've used stock pots before, but this allowed me to make a ton of broth at one time, which is what I wanted to do. And then today I'm going to be showing you how to can with the Presto digital pressure canner. This is my best friend and what made canning as a mom practical for me. So this is what we're going to be using, and the first thing you're going to do is get your jars warming in here. So we're going to be pressure canning these, and I like to use larger jars for broth because it's the proper amount for making soup, which is what I usually will do with it. So I've got mostly quarts and like 1.5 pint jars here, and I'm going to show you how to can using all different sizes in one batch. So what you're going to start by doing is you're going to have your pressure can light up here, and you're just going to press this button in right here, and you're going to set the timer to 25 minutes for quart jars, for canning chicken broth in quart jars. If your jars are a little bit smaller, you are going to use the highest time. You're going to round up. So it's going to say insert jars. So I'm going to take my jars and add them to this water. This is filled to the fill line. It will mark it on the inside of your pan with the insert in, and I'm going to add my jars now. You're going to fill your jars halfway and add them to the pot. They can sit real close to each other so you can fit as many jars as you can in here. So all my jars have been washed and then filled halfway. We put them into the canner, and now we're going to add the lid, and this is going to heat the water and the jars so that all of your jars and all of your water and all of your broth are the same temperature and you don't risk any of your jars cracking. You're going to place your lid on. It's going to be in the install remove slot first, and then you're going to turn it and lock it. You're going to pull off your pressure gauge on the top and leave that off until we start canning, and then you will press your lock down, turn it, and lock it. And then you're all set. So you're going to press the arrow, and it's going to start warming your jars. It's going to beep when it's all done warming. And between here and there, you want to get your lids and your rings ready, as well as your broth. I was able to get 4 standard mouth jars in my canner, and then I'll have 2 wide mouth. So I've got 2 wide mouth rings, and then I'll have 2 wide mouth lids. And as I said in my previous video, they used to recommend boiling these lids so that they would seal. You don't need to do that anymore. So as you can see, they've just been washed and they're ready to go. If you are just new to canning, I have loved this Presto digital canner because I have little kids running around and I don't have to worry about watching the pressure exactly and keeping it precise in order to have a safe product to put on my pantry shelf. This does all the work for me. It adjusts the pressure for your altitude, and it really can't explode. It will not let you do anything until the pressure is all the way back down to normal, so you don't have to worry about so much of the safety concerns, and it does all of the work for you. Our jars are out of the canner. The machine's going to beep twice. You're just going to take the lid off. Don't worry about it. There's no pressure built up in the canner yet. You'll remove your jar and set it down on a cloth because it will be warm, and you'll make sure you dump all the water out. The water is just to help with the heating process. So I've got my canning funnel here, and then a strainer as well, because I'm just pulling this broth straight out of the container. And we're gonna start filling our jars. Now you can add salt to the broth now if you want it to taste just like store-bought. You're probably going to need at least a tablespoon for a quart of broth. It's a lot more salt than you think you're going to need. I like to keep mine unsalted because I've gotten used to using homemade broth, and so I just know to add a lot of extra salt to whatever recipe I'm using it in. So you're just going to fill all your jars up this way. I like to keep my other jars in the canner until I'm ready to fill them so that they stay nice and warm. So we're gonna fill this jar until it has about 1 inch of headspace. I like to use extra because if you've ever made homemade broth, you know it has quite a bit of fat that will settle on the top, and that grease can keep your jar from sealing if it gets up too close to the lid. So I am going to leave a good bit of headspace here, just like that. I'm just going to take a rag with vinegar on it and wipe the edges because you don't want any of that grease to keep your lids from sealing. We're just going to add our lid and our ring. This is going to be warm, so usually a towel is good to help you get it fingertip tight, and then you're just going to add it back to your canner. I've got all my jars in the canner now. I was able to get 2 quarts and 4 that are 1.5 quarts. So again, we're going to be canning this for the full time for a quart. You always want to round up, not round down. So we're going to add our lid now. Same as before, you're just going to turn your lid to the locked position. You're going to lower the safety arm and click to lock. You're not going to add your pressure weight yet. You're just simply going to resume. So it's going to heat, and then I'll come back and show you in a minute when it comes to pressure and you're going to put the weight on it. Your timer will beep and it will start something called venting, and you'll have a countdown timer. Once that beeps again, it will tell you to put the regulator on top. That's your little weight, and you want to make sure that you pop it on and have it pointing towards can. And then once you have that on, you'll go back down to your buttons. You can either press the round button or the arrow button, and that's going to start the actual canning timer. So I'll come back and show you what it looks like once the canning process is done. One of my favorite things about having bone broth on the canned pantry shelf is that I can pull it off and make soup in a flash, no matter what is going on. And I've bought it from the store before, and obviously that's convenient, but it's just not nearly as delicious or nutritious as canning it yourself. And you know all the ingredients that go into it. It's also so much cheaper to can it yourself because you're just using scraps that you already have to make it. I hate paying $2, $3, $4 for bone broth at the store when I can just make it with the leftovers that I have. So this is a really fantastic thing to do if you want to get started with canning. Very easy too. My canner has beeped and shows done, so we're just going to unlock the canner, remove the safety arm, and open the lid away from you. You don't need to be worried about any pressure built up in here because it will not let you remove the lid without it. Now leave your jars on a warm surface while they cool. Watch for the center of your jars to pop or to be depressed. After 24 hours, just take your rings off. You can pick the cans up by the top, and if those lids stay sealed, you're good to go. We're doing a whole series here on my channel about how to get started with canning. So if that's something you've always wanted to do, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.